Hey guys, this is Battlestar Galactica, the board game. If you've been following my videos, I posted a video about a month ago saying I would have a video ready by the end of this month, January. Fortunately, it doesn't look like it's going to happen. I do have some games out. I was able to record 2 games. I could just slap a commentary track on them and release them, but I didn't really want to do that. I wanted to do something special. I wanted to put overlays and all kinds of neat stuff. So it's going to take a little while for the first one. I got it scripted. All I have to do is add in the neat stuff. Also, I want to get a commentary track with my roommate, who also plays Battlestar Galactica, and I thought it'd be pretty nice if you were able to join in on the commentary. I figure it might make it better. In the meantime, I told my friends I painted my Battlestar Galactica miniatures. As you may be able to see, I'll bring them up closer. I don't have a before and after. I didn't feel like doing it, mainly because I had to do most of this outside, and I didn't want to rig my camera up outside with spray paint and then forget my camera and lose it and everything. So there's no before and after. I might just throw up a bunch of pictures of how they look unpainted. So I only got a few of these. They generally look the same from one another. I didn't do any special touches, but I'll start with the worst ones to the what I think are the best ones. Here are the Mark II Raptors, or just normal Raptors, as they're known as in the game. Well, first of all, before I did all these, I spray painted them with a with Chaos Black primer. Well, this doesn't say primer though. What is this? This is Chaos Black. It's the old Citadel colors. They aren't. Is it Citadel now, or they're called something different? But this is a Citadel. This cost me a fortune. But yeah, I primed them with this. Sprayed them on really light. I didn't want to clog up the details. And then I waited for them to dry, and then I just dry brushed them. And if you don't know about dry brushing, you don't know anything about painting. And I severely doubt that anybody watching this video knows less than I do about painting. Dry brushing is when you take a little bit of paint, you put on your palette or whatever you want to mix it and mix your paints on, and you wipe pretty much all the paint off your brush, like most of it, and you just go back and forth and you just do the general coloring of the area, like this one here. This one looks pretty intricate, but it looks like crap too. But then again, most of the Vipers on the show look like crap. They look like battle damage and everything. So I went over this with a white color. I was gonna go with silver, but I'll explain why I didn't. But I went with white, and I had some red gloss. I put some gloss on there, or red ink, kinda, and I put black for the cockpit in this case, and then I just dry brushed it. Pretty much all of this is dry brush, except for the detail. Even the detail, I took up most of the paint and I just dry brushed it all. I didn't mix any water with anything. I didn't wash any of them. At the end of all of these, I sprayed them with a lacquer, a clear glossy lacquer, to protect them, because these are pieces, they're going to be handled a lot, so they need some kind of protection. It gives it kind of a woody type smell because the lacquer is made for outdoor furniture. But it's pretty much the best protection you can have against, your paint chipping. As you can see, it's not my best work, but I did my best, What are you going to do? Second, I would say, would be the Raptors. Now, the Raptors on the show, if you've seen the show, the Raptors are probably the hardest to get the paint right, because Battlestar Galactica, the show, uses a lot of filters. There's a lot of filters. If you notice, particularly in the beginning of the first season, Caprica has like after the radiation, after all the nuking and everything like that, has a kind of a amber type of filter. And it's a good way for you to discern, okay, well, they're on Caprica, they're on another planet, they aren't on, say, Cloud 9 or some other, like in Battlestar Galactica they have a ship called Cloud 9, I believe, that has a biosphere where it looks like they're on Earth. They look like they're on an earthen planet, but they're not. They're in like a sphere, like a dome, kind of like Biodome, except more high tech. So the ships, the Raptors, pretty much change color because they're actually a copper kind of color, more copper than bronze, more like a penny, your average penny. And again, like a penny is a really good example because you can take all the pennies out of your pocket and they're all different colors. They're not like, say, maybe quarters, you have a darker quarter and a shiny quarter and then the middle-sized quarter. But the pennies, you have the super dark, almost black penny. You have the bright copper bronze penny. You have the, you know, the penny that's seen better days. The penny that's a little bit green, you know, something like that. But here are the normal Raptors. These are actually pretty. I think these are the hardest to paint. Dry brush. Though really wasn't all that hard, but of all these were actually the hardest. I used. I don't have the colors on me right now, unfortunately. I'm sorry. I used a little bit of sand, Tellurian sand with Gehenna Gold. If you know those colors, those are like Citadel colors. The Gehenna's Gold, I think mine was a bust because it was watery. I don't know if it was supposed to be a wash, or if I was supposed to, you know, do Gehenna's, do the sand and then Gehenna's Gold over it. But Gehenna's Gold is it's a really like a really strong brown, like a red brown. And Gehenna's Gold, or Tellurian sand it's not like gold. It's actually it looks like gold. So mixing them together brought this kind of a color, and I struggle. And even looking at it now, it's kind of hard to discern what kind of color it is, because I was going for a type of bronze, but I mean really any kind. I pretty much it's in the ballpark, and trust me, it looks a lot better than it does unpainted. This is the Assault Viper. The Assault Raptor. It's basically a Raptor with little missiles on the top. They're much smaller than the normal Raptors, and that's the sound that a Raptor makes when it's firing. It's a honking sound. Anyway, I apologize. I have to keep the window open because otherwise I'll die of heat or whatever. You know, that stuff that happens when it's not cold. I tried to make this lighter. Actually, it turns out to be darker. I don't know if it's lying in this room or what's going on. It's actually a little bit lighter than it is here, or what I think it is. I tried to make it a little more gold so it popped more, so you can see the difference at a glance, you know. Which is my main thing with the painting, is that I wanted you to be able to tell immediately, because I'll show you now. Here is a Viper 7, we call them, or Viper Mark 7, we call them Super Vipers. And seeing these like the same color, like this, it's really kind of hard to discern unless you're looking at the back. You would have to know exactly what you're looking at. You can see the back. The Super Viper is more of a cross. This is more of like a triangle. But seeing it like this is kind of like, what? You know, and from far away when you're playing the game. If I see them right here and you didn't know the colors, they're kind of hard to discern. But I have to pat myself on the back for the Super Viper. Super Viper, I was following instructions online how to paint these, what colors I should get, because I didn't know what colors I should, you know, aim for. And the guy just said, you know, just paint this silver, because there's silver in the show. But I always disagree. In the show, again, like the Raptors, the Super Vipers come in like 5 different colors. You could agree there's silver, but I think there's a tinge of blue in there. And in some shots, it almost looks flat out blue. Like it's a blue. You could tell there's some blue in there. I think I nailed it with this. It looks a little blue when it's dark, but if you, with the light shining on it, you can see the blue kind of goes away and turns into kind of a silverish. Kind of hard to discern, but I think I nailed the color, and it looks quite nice, if I must say so. I think this is like really good. I think I gotta compliment myself on this, because I mean, this is the first try. I looked at colors. This looks like, you know, Viper blue. And next up are the. I probably did my best with the Cylons, only because they're all one color. I made them all one color because, you know, like the enemy, you know, it's better if you make the enemy all one color, like Decepticons in the Transformers series. You know, they all have their red eyes. They're all silver, so you can tell them apart. You know, kind of, and that's a bad example because you can't tell anything apart from that show, from that movie. Anyway, these are Heavy Raiders. I don't think I did the red dot on these. Some of the Raiders I did red dots on them. Actually, I think all of them I did, but I don't think I did on the the Heavy Raiders. Again, this is pure dry brushing. I think I nailed it. This looks intricate, but it's actually, it was like one of the easiest ones to paint. All the Cylon ships were dead easy to paint via dry brush. The color I used was gunbolt metal, I believe. That's all I did. This is all gunbolt metal. No mix, no water, all dry brush. That's all this is. And the same with this. As you can see, I put a little red dot there. I don't know if it'll show up on the camera. I don't even know. See, I'm sorry, I can't aim my camera correctly. Oh, there it is coming at you. Oh. I don't know if you can see the red there. I'm sorry, from my vantage point, I can't tell, but I mean, just holding it, you can see the red. Again, this is dry brushing. You could see the detail on the inside. You can see the black. That's why you dry brush, or if you're, you know, you don't really go over this. This is really fast. As a matter of fact, painting all this was immediate. It was really fast. It probably took me. The silent shifts probably took me 20 minutes tops. The human fleet, the human ships, these four here, the ones that are varied colors. Those took me a while because I had to mix. There was a lot of mixing involved, except for the Vipers. The two Vipers here, no mixing was involved. Just these took me forever. The Vipers trying to get the right colors, and I just, you know, forget it. I'll just stick with it. This is gunbolt metal, and the red, I used a little different red from the Vipers. The Vipers red pops out more, if you could see. I used more of a glossy red. With the Cylon red, I wanted to make it more of a blood red, and I did. I don't think you can see on the camera. It's a little more blood red. It's a little bit darker. I had to buy another whole new red for this, and I just mixed them up for the red of the Raiders. And this was easier than you think it was. This is actually probably the second easiest piece behind the Heavy Raider, believe it or not. You think these are easy, but when I was painting them, I decided to hold them by hand. Now that's generally a bad idea because your fingernail, the oil on your fingers and your fingerprints will get all over the paint. Fortunately for me, I bought a bunch of latex gloves, and that worked out beautifully. So you can't see anywhere that I touched anything. So when I held this, I couldn't hold it like this because it would fall out of my hand. So I held it like this while I painted it, and it was kind of annoying. But with this, I got away with going like this because I couldn't bend it because there's 4 points, so I can hold as hard as I want to. This, there's only 2 points down here, and I didn't want to bend it, so that's why it was harder to paint by hand. But this was easy because, again, I could just hold it like this and paint over it. That's why you can see some of the black underneath here, or did I color over it? I can't see. Anyway, again, there's some red. There's some red in the eye, if you can see it, and all the same color, all gunmetal gray. And this looks I don't know, this looks great. Again, I have absolutely zero artistic talent. Artistic, yeah, I don't want to say autistic. I'm going to screw up there. I have no skills whatsoever. I'm probably the worst person with art I've ever known throughout my life. It's not that I'm lazy, it's just I can't do it. Like, I physically cannot, not physically, I even write bad, like my writing here. Look at that. That's my writing, folks. That's me trying. Look, I'm gonna cry some scars. I'm not joking. I look like a 5th grader, right? Not even 5th grade. 5th graders write better than this. And I think the piece that came out the best, I got 2 of these. Let me pull out the other one. Oh, the base stars came out so wonderful. I can't, like, I'm mesmerized. Just look at this. This is crazy. Dry brushing, that's all I did. All I did. If I can do it, you can do it. It came out perfectly. It's beautiful. It comes out in 2 parts. I took them apart and I painted them. And yeah, this came out perfectly. The color's perfect, and you see the lines. The black lines, again, when you prime it, so basically I did the black first. And dry brushing, you don't go into the grooves here when you dry brush because there's basically no paint on your brush. It's only just a little bit. And there you go. That's how you do it. Here's the second one. Again. Now like this, like the others, I sprayed it with a lacquer. I wanted to get a matte lacquer because none of the ships really shine. There's no really shiny detail. As you notice, my ships shine because I used a semi-gloss. It's all I had. I looked in Home Depot and I got lost. And then I really tried to find matte, some kind of matte gloss, but I couldn't find it. But I found a clear lacquer semi-gloss, and I went with it. And I don't know if you could smell in smell-o-vision. It smells like a new house. That's what it smells like. It smells really good. Alright, so a while back I made a movie about, well, I made a video, about how this game is played. I want to get into it a little bit. Battlestar Galactica. Basically, the show, it's pretty much like the show. If you heard about the 1970 series, it's pretty much the same thing. It's just the characters are slightly different. Boomer's a chick. What's his name? Starbuck's a chick. Baltar's kind of a good guy. It's all the same thing. Basically, you lead the humans to another home and away from the evil Cylons who are trying to kill you. So, when you start the game, you pick your character. In this case, I'll pick William Adama, who is the Admiral. Well, he's not the Admiral yet. There's actually different ranks. There's different title cards you can have that give you special powers. But in this case, okay, we'll pick William Adama. Okay. Now, these are your skill sets. Your skills determine like how much you can help during a crisis. In real life terms, they're more about skills that you would have, like leadership and tactics. He's like the best leader pretty much on the show, or one of the best at least. And his tactics, it means he's a commander. He knows his tactics. He knows battlefield tactics and everything like that. So you draw 3 leadership, 2 tactics. That means he's a little more he's a little bit powered with leadership and tactics. However, he's not really good with piloting or politics or engineering or even treachery. As you can see down here, there's 5 different colors for the skills. Different characters have different skills. Like, say, we'll pick an engineer. Engineer has actually more engineering skills. As you can see here, Chief Tyrrell. He draws 2 engineering, 2 leadership because he's in charge of the flight deck, and politics because he's a little bit... The politics is, later on in the show he actually becomes like somewhat of a governor or a mayor, but yeah, he's a little bit. He has some politics skills. There's also treachery. Some characters draw treachery. Treachery cards are kind of bad, but they represent some of the nefarious characters on the show. You pick your character, and then as you can see here, here's the what I call it the perpetual ability. It's an ability that pretty much works all the time. And here he is this inspirational leader. When you draw a crisis card, all strength 1. Skill cards count positive for the skill check. Now let me get into crisis cards. Crisis cards come up once per turn. They represent a like a situation, like say on the show, like in Star Trek, a crisis would be, oh, the teleporter's screwed up, and Captain Kirk's on his planet is about to blow up. That's pretty much it. And if you fail it, Captain Kirk goes to sickbay. But if you pass it, then you gain a morale because we're all happy that we have our captain back. And in this case, it's Cylon accusation. As you can see, there's a number here, colors here. There's a pass and fail in this symbol down here. Now, let me explain. This number here up top is the strength. It's the number you need to pass it. You need to go at this number or higher. The colors here represent what's good for the skill check. So in this case, politics, which is yellow, leadership, which is green, and tactics, which is purple, are necessary to pass this. So if you throw in cards that actually help this. Now if you throw in piloting with red cards, engineering, the blue engineering, or the orange treachery, those actually count against it. Now let me show you a skill card and show you what I mean. These skill cards here. Skill cards here are the ones that you draw. If you're a Dama, you should have 2 purple. Let's say 2 purple here, and oh, good for me, 3 greens. Now this is kind of a hand. Now you don't know what cards you're getting. These would be face down when they're dealt to you. So you get them in your hand. You're like, okay, well now I have these cards here, and strength of 10. Now you and your friends have to figure out, okay, well, how many cards can we all put together to pass this? Now, you can't say exactly how many cards you want to put in. You can't say the exact number. Now, I'll tell you why in a minute, but you could say, I'm going to do a little, or I'm going to do a lot. And so, like, let's say, I really want to hold on to my hands. I don't want to blow all my cards, because if you blow all your cards, you won't have enough for the next crisis. So you can say, I'm helping a little. And you could just say, I'm going to put in that much, the little. And what I just put in was two cards here. Now, the only number you really care about in a skill check are these numbers here. These together add up 2, so that's 2 contributing towards the success of this crisis here. Text down here doesn't really matter in certain circumstances. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. It depends. I won't really get into that because it's way too confusing. But the text down here, I'll explain this too in a minute. So you put in these 2 cards, and your friends they all put in cards. Oh, I'll put in a little. Oh, I'll put in a lot, or whatever, you know. And at the end, also, there's a Destiny deck that's combined. It has two cards from each color, including Treachery. They're shuffled, and 2 of those go on top in the deck. And you shuffle them up, and you add up the number. And in this case, if I were to put all these cards, this would be a fail. This would be a total of 5. We would fail, and this gets resolved. The current player is placed in the brig position. The current player being the one who draws the crisis card, and you draw a crisis card in the end of your turn. So that's what. So theoretically, if I were the one that draws this card, I would be in the brig right now. Now, why is everything so secret? Why are you putting your cards face down? Now, why can't you say how many you're putting in? It's because at the beginning of the game, you get dealt a loyalty card. These loyalty cards determine whose side you're on, because the Cylons have created human robots. As you can see here, here's part of the loyalty deck. You either get one of these cards, or, well, this is sympathizer. No, that's a bad example. I love how I'm getting all the bad examples. Or you can get one of these cards, these Cylon. You are a Cylon. So at the beginning of the game, you get your loyalty card face down. And then everyone looks at the card. And as you can see, you are not a Cylon doesn't really say anything. It says you are not a Cylon. It has some flavor text here. Our tests indicate you are not a Cylon, although you can never be too sure. You can never know for sure. As opposed to the you are a Cylon, which all have a different thing on it, which activates when you reveal. When you go, aha, I'm a bad guy, and then you go. It's like your nasty gram. You go, okay, can damage Galactica. Oh. You can send a character to the brig, or you can reduce morale by 1. That's a big deal. God, what a loser. What a loser. See, as you can tell, sending somebody to the brig. Now, going to the brig, really quick. Going to the brig, it makes it so you can't jump to any of these locations. You can't really do anything. You can only contribute 1 card to a skill check, which is bad because you can only help or hinder a skill check by a very little. So you never want to be in the brig. The brig itself has its own crisis area with politics and tactics, and with a strength of 7. So if you can, you and your friends can actually help you to get out of the brig, and your enemies can try and keep you in there. So if you are a Cylon, now you wouldn't want to be helping with this skill check. So what you would be trying to do is saying, well, I can help a little or something, and you throw in some piloting and some engineering. You try not to be too overt. If you're a Cylon, let's say if you're a Cylon and you're the only one who's a pilot, like say if you're Boomer, and you throw in too many piloting cards, like say 3 piloting cards, and nobody else around you is a pilot, they flip it over and flip all these cards over and say, wait a minute, we bombed this test because somebody threw in a lot of piloting cards. And they look at you and go, ah, you're a Cylon, you're a dirty, nasty Cylon, you should die. So you have to be really covert. You don't want to be revealed because you want to stay. You can do the most damage here, arguably. You can try to take the presidency. Like I said, there's different titles. You can be the President, Admiral, or in another expansion, you could be the CAG, Captain of Air Guard, or Commander of Air Guard. The Admiral's abilities is he can't really. The only things he could really do is some skill cards say Admiral chooses. Some skill cards also say. President chooses, or CAG chooses. The Admiral's main abilities is he's able to throw a nuke, in the start of the game you start off with 2 nukes. You can get up to 3. You can throw a nuke, and a nuke is like the most damaging. It's like an AoE effect in any one of these 6 locations. There's 6 board locations, and if there's like, let's say there's like a bunch of Cylons here, you don't want to send like a raptor here. I mean a Viper here. You can just throw a nuke there, and then if you roll high, you blow everything up, including civilian ships on the board. So it could be used as a Cylon thing if you want to see. If you see a bunch of civilian ships, you just throw a nuke there and blow them all up to win. That's if you're an evil Cylon or evil Admiral. I mean, so, Admirals also get destination. I'm sorry. At the end of a crisis, on this crisis card here, I forgot to talk about this symbol. This symbol means these types of vehicles move. So, and I lost. Oh, there it is. See, if you could see, these two are the same. So that means these move. So these move in a predetermined pattern. If there's civilian ships, they go after civilian ships. If there aren't any civilian ships, they shoot at Galactica. These have a really low rate to be able to damage Galactica. If Galactica's damaged, a location basically becomes unusable. If there's any characters in the location as it was blown up, they get sent to sickbay. Sickbay is the bad thing is that when you start your turn, you only draw 1 skill card, so you're less effective. Like when you come out, let's say if you come out of the hospital, you're not really 100%. You can't run that marathon the next day, so your skill set's a little bit lower. You have to wait your turn. You have to recuperate. That's basically it. Like as opposed to the brig, being in the brig, you're not really effective. I mean, you still have all your wits about you. You still have your skills. However, you can't really help your friend with moving his junk from one house to another, can't you? You can just offer moral support, So, I forgot where I was. Oh yeah, the Admiral. Admiral gets access to destinations. So at the that's what I was getting at. So at the end of a crisis, usually at the bottom right hand of a card, and I pull up another one that doesn't have one. Let me pull a bunch of them. Bear with me here. Oh my gosh. Screwing everything up. So, what did I do here? Here we go. Rescue the fleet. You see this jump symbol. This is called a jump symbol. Every time, at the end of the turn when you resolve everything, you move this jump. There's a jump preparation track right here. So every time you pass a crisis, you don't even have to pass it. You just go through and resolve it. At the end, these 2 things happen no matter what, regardless of whether or not you win or whoever, like say the Admiral chooses in this location. I mean this situation. So you jump. So every turn you move up, up, up. And these 2 symbols here are -3 and -1. These are possible. That means you can theoretically jump when you hit those locations. How you jump? You move the FTL control here and you activate it basically and you jump. The -1 and the -2 represent how much population you'll lose if you jump, because since you jumped in a hurry, you didn't warn the fleet as to where you were going, so you left some people behind. So that's why that is. As a matter of fact, since I'm on population, there's 4 resources in the game. There's fuel, food, morale, and population. They aren't all really the same. You start off with the most pop. You start off with 12. And you have to start off with 10 morale, 8 food, and 8 fuel. Those can be changed. You can go under different house rules. You can raise the morale a little bit if you want the humans to have an edge, or you can lower the food if you want the Cylons to have an edge. In general, fuel is probably the hardest to get back. In general, the only time you really ever use fuel is when you go to different locations. These different locations have different. As you see, if the Admiral were able to, first of all, when the Admiral jumps, he chooses 2 of these cards, and only he is allowed to look at them. He picks a card to resolve, so he's in charge of where we jump. So if he's a Cylon, he wants to jump as low as possible, because higher numbers mean the closer he is to the end of the game. When you reach 8 and jump 1 more time, the humans win. So in this case, this is a 1. So a Cylon would probably want to jump here. So Lose 1 fuel. The admiral may risk a raptor. 1 raptor to roll a die. If 3 or higher, gain 1 food. Otherwise, destroy a raptor. So, this is a special type card. Usually these cards don't have these kind of text on them. Usually it's just lose 2 fuel, or lose 1 fuel, or whatever. Or lose a fuel and morale because you jumped in the middle of nowhere and there's no space bars. Space bars. That's funny. Keyboard joke. So, anyway, the resources. The resources don't really factor in the game. They're more like hit points, how many hits you can take. If any one of these resources hits 0 at the end of a player's turn, the game is over essentially. Which means theoretically, you could jump out. You could jump back. You could actually hit 0 fuel with a destination. Like for example, there's a destination card that says lose 1 fuel, and if you risk a raptor or risk a raptor if you roll it and hit a certain number, you get 2 fuel, so you can actually come back for the brink of death if you want to. Food and morale, you can get those. Like all the other ones, you could pretty much get back. Population is maybe a little bit hard to get back. It's population and fuel, I would say, are the hardest to get back. Food and morale jump up back and forth, back and forth. By popular belief, food is probably the hardest to lose to because there's not a lot of crises that put food, that risk food. Though there are some crises that let you get food back, so it doesn't really matter. Typically, people lose the fuel and morale and the silent boarding party, which is what this is. Some crises, or these ships here, when these ships reach either this location or this location, they board Galactica and they start here. And every time, like that card I showed you, the crisis card that showed that, what's it called? I can't even find it, or whatever. If it shows this symbol, Heavy Raider symbol, this dude moves up. And when this dude moves up, effectively what happens if the show were real, the Silents infiltrate the CIC, or Command, and they vent all the oxygen in the space, all the humans die. That's essentially what happens. Or basically the Silents overrun the entire place. Which is kind of what happens in... Well, it doesn't happen in the show, but that's one of the crises that happens in the show. The final way the humans can lose is if, I think 5 locations have to be damaged. 5 or 6, basically, locations have to be damaged here. And effectively, the Battlestar Galactica is too damaged to continue, and it blows up. And then, since the Galactica is like the only military ship that's able to defend any other ship, basically the human fleet becomes ravaged at that point. So this ship up here, by the way, I didn't explain these other locations. Oh, and this too. This is Pegasus. This is part of the Pegasus expansion. It's essentially like Galactica, except it has more offensive maneuvers and much more like critical, like gambling areas. Like the main batteries here, you could accidentally destroy a civilian ship with this, as opposed to weapons control, where it's much more you could choose what you want to attack at. This is just more like flat control. The airlock, you can choose to kill somebody instead of throwing them in the brig. And CIC here is choose a base star and roll a die. You can, oh wow, that's pretty hardcore. Engine room. The engine room is pretty cool. It means even, you remember that card I showed you that didn't have a jump symbol? This one makes it guaranteed that no matter what happens, you are going to jump. So that's pretty cool. As opposed to FTL, where FTL you can only activate when this is at blue or higher. Oh, by the way, you don't have to go to FTL to jump. When you jump one more time at this point, you jump automatically technically for free. You don't have to activate or anything like that. So if this location is damaged, you still theoretically can jump. But it's a lot more riskier. Usually if this location is damaged, usually that's a big deal. Usually if hangar deck or this area is damaged, you're in big trouble. Or armory, actually. Armory, when you have one of these on here. Armory, this location, you only use this location to blow up the Cylons there. Now what else should I get into? I don't know. I think I explained the nitty gritty of it, I guess. It's pretty much. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Colonial 1. This is Colonial 1. It's essentially Air Force 1. Or essentially the White House. There's a bunch of presidential options you have here. You can elect a new president or other stuff like that. In the new expansion that we've been playing, Colonial 1 is replaced by this, which means you can't really, in administration, you can't really elect a president anymore. All you can do is, if the president has a mutiny card, you basically choose another president, choose another person to be the president, or you can. I'm reading the text here. It's pretty different. It's a lot different. There was a crisis too, a super crisis bomb on Colonial 1, where if you fail it, the Colonial 1 explodes. So there you go. You put that there. If Colonial 1 gets exploded, there you go. It's destroyed. You can't use it. If Pegasus is destroyed, you essentially just flip it over. You just remember the treachery go here. That's all you do. Yeah, Pegasus and the Colonial 1, you can allow them to be destroyed. You don't really want them to be destroyed, but they can be destroyed, and the game would still continue. It's Galactica that really matters. Even if Galactica gets damaged, you can't jump on Pegasus. It doesn't count. These locations here, if you are a Cylon, then you go here. You go here either if you're dead, or you throw your nastygram. If you're in the brig, you can actually say, "Fuck, I'm a Cylon, I kill myself," and you end up in the resurrection ship. Now, if you're killed by a human player, you don't get a super crisis card. Super crisis cards are super bad. Typically, they have high. They look like normal crisis cards. You look at me like something's different. These look like Cylon intruders. Like this is a big deal. Cylon intruders, strength of 18, with tactics and leadership are the only ones that are able to help it. Pass no effect. If you get this is actually a good example of a halfway card. It's a partial pass. You can have a partial fail, partial pass. So 14. If you manage to get like a strength of 14 or up, place one Centurion marker at the start of the boarding party track, which would be right there. If you fail, damage Galactica and place 2 Centurion markers at the start of the boarding party track. Now, Centurions on the boarding party track is a huge deal, because in order to kill them, there's pretty much 3 ways you can kill them. There's a quorum card. If you're the president, you can play a quorum card. It's this authorization of brutal force, which kills anyone. It instantly kills a Cylon here on the boarding party track. The second way is if you activate the armory, and you have to roll a 7 or 8, which is really hard. So a lot of people wait to see if other people have skill cards that would help with the roll. Like calculations. Calculations allow you to add or subtract, I think, 1 or 2 away from a die roll. So you can make it pass or fail based on calculations. The third way is you can use a card or somebody's special ability. I believe there's a character named Kat whose die rolls, you can make it so whenever she has to roll a die, and she can instead play a card, and the strength of that card would in effect be the die roll. So if you need to roll an 8, you can just throw down a 6 card, and it's always I think it's a card plus 3 or a card plus 2, and that counts as the die roll. So that's pretty good. As a matter of fact, with special abilities, we'll go take a look at Adama again. So you see up here, Inspirational Leader. When you draw a crisis card, like I said earlier, every player at the end of his turn draws a crisis card, unless you're in the brig, I believe, or if you're a Cylon on a Cylon location. I think that's how it goes. When you draw a crisis card, all Strength 1 skill cards count positive for a skill check. So no matter what, even if it's a Politics 1 or Tactics 1, it still counts positive. So he's a really good leader to have in the middle of a crisis. But this only works on that condition. So it's only when he draws crisis cards. So say if Laura Roslin here drew a crisis card, his ability wouldn't count. And the second ability here is this once per game. This usually is a super ability. You only use once. It's also now it's called a miracle ability. In this case, it's a really good ability that it lets you break the rules, kinda. Well, it doesn't really break the rules, but it lets you get away with whatever the text here. In this case, command authority. Once per game, after resolving a skill check, instead of discarding the used skill cards, draw them into your hand. So that means at the end of the skill check, you say, oh, I'm just going to draw all these cards in your hand. Now, you're only allowed 10 cards in your hand at any one time. There's a character here, Chief Tyrrell, who is reckless. He can only hold 8, but I'll get into that in the weakness. Every character has a weakness. And for Adama, he's emotionally attached. You may not activate the Admiral's Quarters location, which means he essentially can't throw anybody into the brig. The Admiral's Quarters is this location here. You activate this location, choose another person to send to the brig. And we'll go try another character. We'll try Saltai here. He's my favorite. He's similar to Adama. He's actually in the whole in all the expansions combined, he's probably third highest to be Admiral. Helena Kane being the first. Adama's actually second. But in this case, we're playing vanilla, so he's actually first. So, but anyway, I digress. So in this case, Saltai, we'll look at his. He draws 2 leadership and 3 tactics, as opposed to Adama's 3 leadership and 3 tactics. I'm sorry, 2 tactics. So he's a much more. He's a little bit faster with tactics than Adama, but he's actually a pretty crappy leader. I mean, he could lead, but nobody really likes him. So Silent Hatred. When a player activates his Admiral's Quarters location, you may choose to reduce the difficulty by 3. So that's pretty interesting. So now, when somebody activates this location, you can say, hey, you know, I don't like Starbuck. I want her to go to the brig. So I choose. Now you may choose not to do this. I want to activate this location. I want it to be a power lowered by 3. So now it takes 4, the power of 4 to throw somebody in the brig, and that's funny because if you pick Starbuck, her weakness here is insubordinate. When a player activates you with the Admiral's Quarters location, reduce the difficulty by 3. So that means if in these abilities stack, so if you're Saltai and somebody wanted to throw Starbuck into the brig and you choose to lower the difficulty, that means you only need the power of 1 to throw her ass in the brig. Which is kind of funny, which is what happens in the show at the beginning. He like immediately throws her in the brig because he was acting like a dick, but she punched him. And declare martial law once per game. Give the President's tile to the Admiral. Now he may not necessarily be Admiral, but it's once per game you can just rip the President's tile out of the President's hands. Oh, I'm sorry. In his weakness, he's an alcoholic. At the start of any player's turn, if you have exactly 1 skill card in your hand, you must discard it. That's because he just pisses away his talent. You know. It's really interesting. I really like these characters because they're accurate. They're pretty accurately portrayed as they are in the game, like they are in the show. Like a good example would be Hilo here. ECO officer. During your turn, you may roll a die that was just rolled once per turn. You must use the new result. So, it's during your turn. You may re-roll a die. So that's really interesting. The text on these cards are really deceptive because there's your turn. There's your turn and what's actually going on. I'll give you a good example. There's a card here. It's called, again, these cards you can play as an action. You always get a move and an action. At the start of your turn, you gotta move somewhere. Well, actually, you can't move somewhere and activate it, or you can choose not to move and activate it, or you can just move and not do anything. Though that's really not, you really don't ever want to do it. You always want to move and do something. So, like in this case, let's say you don't know what to do. There's nothing going on here. All these dudes are dead. You always want to do something. So in this case, you maybe want to go to research lab, draw 1 engineering or tactics skill card. So that's good. So you need all those cards. So you take it, or you can. Actually, I think it's only go. Or you can go to Colonial 1. I think you can draw 2 politics cards or something like that. Anyway, executive order. You can play one of these cards. So executive order. That means you can choose another character and you make him do two moves or 2 actions. So if you exo somebody, it's still your turn. So according to Hilo, if he exos somebody, if he exos like Adama here, and Adama's already in the armory, that means he could roll to kill a Cylon on the boarding party track. But since it's his turn, and let's say Adama screws up the roll, he can say, "Well, re-roll it," and you have to use the new dice roll, but whatever. So you can re-roll it again. Maybe he'll win. Maybe he won't. So, and Moral Compass, once per game, after a player makes a choice on a crisis card, you may change it. That's pretty cool because even if let's say the Admiral chooses somebody on a crisis card, he can say, no, never mind, no, pick some, I want the other choice. But you only do it once per game. Well, unless you have a miracle token, but that's a whole other thing. Now in the show, he starts off on Caprica. He actually gets stranded on Caprica, and he tries to survive. He eventually gets back on the ship. But as you can see, you're stranded. Your character is not placed on the game board at the start of the game. While not on the game board, you may not move, be moved, or take actions. So at the start of your second turn, place your character on the hangar deck location. So that's bad. He basically can't. He can still contribute to skill checks. And I believe he still gets his opening cards. He just can't do anything. So. There's a lot of other interesting cards. Gaius Baltar. As you can see, he only draws 4. Everyone draws 5 cards except for Baltar. But Baltar, his perpetual is Delusional Intuition. After you draw a crisis card, draw one skill card of your choice. Maybe from outside your skill set. So that's really useful. So if he draws a crisis card, keeping in mind he only draws 4 cards, you could say, this is a bad example. Oh my gosh. I love how I pick all the cards that don't have crises on them. I mean color crisis. You know what? I give up. I just drew like 10 cards that don't have any. Okay, here we go. This is a great example. So, he draws a crisis card, and he's like, okay, well, I don't draw purple, so let's draw a tactics. So you can draw a tactics card, seeing that he needs tactics here, the tactics to passes, or it might even have piloting. You can draw a piloting card. The reason for this is because on the show, he has there's like a Cylon that only he could see, and the Cylon's giving him tips as to what to do during crises and everything, and it's very ambiguous as to whether or not she's helping him or hurting him, and whether or not she's real or not, or whether or not it's in his head. So that's part of the show. Cylon Detector, action once per game. You may look at all loyalty cards belonging to another player, which is this is a really good ability. However, there is a crisis where if it's failed, you're not allowed to use it. This is the only ability in the game where usually you can look at other players' loyalty card, but it's usually only one of them. In the middle of the game, you get another loyalty card, so you might actually be human up to a point, and you just turn into a Cylon, which can happen. I mean, there's a lot of people in the show who don't think they're Cylons, and they are. And actually, one of these characters here is a Cylon, without going into too much spoilers. But and his weakness is coward. You start the game with 2 loyalty cards instead of 1 because, yeah, he's always flip-flopping. He's always, I don't know, maybe I should side with the Cylons, maybe I should side with the humans, I don't know, you know. He starts out with 2 loyalty cards, so he makes him less trustworthy. He tends to be more likely to be a Cylon, because no matter how many loyalty cards you get, if you have one you are a Cylon card, you're a Cylon. That's why. So you might be thinking, wait a minute, if I have a human card and a Cylon card, can I just choose to be human? Nope. Boomer, she actually gets 2 loyalty cards during the Sleeper Agent phase. The Sleeper Agent phase is always halfway, so like I said earlier, you need to jump 8 and jump 1 more time to win. So when you hit 4 or more distance, you get another loyalty card, and you might turn to be you might be a Cylon. If there aren't any Cylons before, there probably is now. Because depending on how many characters are, usually it's like there can be like 12. I think in a 5-player game or a 6-player game, there's like, I think 5-player game, there's 12 loyalty cards. I think 2 of them are you are a Cylon, and 10 of them are you are not a Cylon. So it's very it's possible that there could be no Cylons in the game at all, though that's so rare. That actually happened to me once. I was so unfortunate. I was a Cylon leader, And silent leaders, I won't even explain that. Maybe in another game. Oh, actually, what I should do is I should explain the my games. If you haven't played Daybreak and you're wondering what, if you play up the Exodus, and you're like, well, Exodus, you already know what this is. Exodus, Daybreak. We played Cobalt, but with a little bit of the Daybreak rules in that the Daybreak Crisis, the Treachery cards, the Pegasus expansion added Treachery cards. Daybreak replaces them. Basically now, when the skill check is made reckless, and there's a symbol, that funny symbol, if you remember that, the funny symbol just means you draw Treachery cards, like a couple of them, I think. And depending on what strength they are is whether or not they'll be resolved. So it's no longer, if it's reckless and somebody throws in like a trip up card, that it's, oh, you're going to blow up and die. It's not like that. Or that card gets resolved. It's not like that anymore. And there are mutiny cards. Mutiny cards are, they're very similar to quorum cards. In my opinion, though that's just my opinion, people might disagree. I'm sorry, I'm still putting my crap back together. Mutiny cards, typically, you play them almost like quorum cards. If you have 2 mutiny cards, you go to jail, and when you go to jail, you have to discard one. So you can have one to run around with, but as soon as you get a second one, you go to jail. Unless you're the mutineer, but we didn't play with mutineer. Mutineers are basically allowed to hold 2 mutiny cards, and if he draws a third, then he goes to jail, and he has to discard 1. So these are the mutiny cards. Typically, the general theme of these cards is that they typically screw another player to help you. They're always helpful for you, but they typically screw another player. I believe these were added, and I'm just speculating at this point. I believe these were added because a lot of the games, from my perspective, a lot of the games I would run into, if the President and Admiral were both silent, you were screwed. Or if the President was an Admiral or silent, you were screwed. These allow you basically to effectively fight back. Because the silent player would like to have one of these, but they wouldn't like to have 2. You know, they wouldn't like to go to jail. So it puts the silent, it puts whoever has one in a precarious position. But it also makes it so, you know, you generally don't really want mutiny cards ever. If you're a human, you don't want them. If you're silent, you kind of do. But if you're a human and you think somebody's a Cylon, well then by all means, you definitely want these in your hand. You want to screw that Cylon. And I'll show you one of these cards in a minute, so you know what I mean. So Selfish Act, like I said. Draw 2 skill cards, discard this card, and then draw another mutiny card. What? Alright, that's not a good example. Okay. Peaceful Resistance. Move to sick bay. Here we go. Move to sick bay and roll a die on 4. Resolve 4 or less, send the Admiral to the brig, then discard this card. So, again. Or actually, this is a bad example. You don't want to go to sick bay, do you? But anyway, like I said, this allows you to effectively kill the, well, not kill the Admiral, but send the Admiral to jail. So if you think the Admiral's a silent, you can go for it. It's like a last ditch maneuver. Here we go. Here's a good point. Violent Protest. Draw 2 politics cards and send the President to sickbay, then discard this card. So it's like, why not? You know, you can pitch this card and there you go. And there's a couple of cards where if you discard 5 skill cards, you can become oh shoot. If you discard if you discard 5 skill cards, you can become President or Admiral. There's one called, I think, Make a Deal, which is pretty powerful. It allows you to swap people in jail. Or, okay, well, if Adama's in jail and Starbuck's out, you can say, hey, I want to make a deal. I want Starbuck out and Adama, I want Adama out and Starbuck in. So, mutiny cards. So those are pretty nice. But I really like them. I like the addition of that. Daybreak also adds the Demetrius, which if you've seen the show, I guess I won't spoil it too much. The Demetrius was like a mining ship, or like it's a medium-sized ship that some of the Galactica crew go onto in order to find Earth. Like they scout off for the smaller jump drive. Smaller ships are able to jump more effectively, so they're in a smaller ship and they jump and they try to find Earth and relay the coordinates back to Galactica, basically. That's what Demetrius does. There's also a Rebel base star. Again, slight spoilers, some Cylons inside the Rebel. So, and there's a crisis where the Rebel base star comes into play. And you can affect the allegiance of the base star. You can basically make it Rebel aligned. If it's Rebel, that means humans can use it. If it's Cylon, I mean only Cylon players can use it. So, anyway, that's it for Battlestar Galactica. I think I've droned on long enough. I'm really sorry for my disjointed explanation with everything. If you watch my videos, I'll explain a little bit more, and hopefully without all the ambient noise in the background. Thanks for watching, and take it easy.